Here is a question that sounds like it has an obvious answer. Why do you cry at funerals? The obvious answer is, because you feel sad. The grief causes the tears. The emotion produces the physical response. This is how most people understand the relationship between emotion and body. And according to William James, it is exactly backward. In 1884, James published a short paper titled What is an Emotion? That turned the ordinary understanding of emotional life upside down. His claim was audacious. The physical response does not follow the emotion. The physical response is the emotion. We do not tremble because we are afraid. We are afraid because we tremble. We do not cry because we grieve. We grieve because we cry. The conscious feeling of emotion, James argued, is the perception of bodily changes that have already occurred. This is the James-Lange theory of emotion, named for James and the Danish physiologist Carl Lange, who arrived at a similar conclusion independently at roughly the same time. And when you first encounter it, it can seem not just wrong but perversely wrong. Of course I feel the grief first. Of course the emotion comes before the tears. But James was careful to ask his readers to actually attend to the phenomenology, to notice what actually happens in the sequence of events, not what they assume must happen. He invited them to try to imagine a strong emotion with all the bodily sensations removed. What is left of anger if you take away the flushing, the clenching, the heightened heart rate? What is left of fear if you remove the cold sweat, the racing pulse, the tightening chest? What is left of joy without the lightness, the openness, the warmth that spreads through the body? James claimed that what is left is not a weaker version of the emotion. What is left is a cold, intellectual assessment, devoid of feeling. The feeling is the body. The body is the feeling. Neuroscience has largely vindicated James, though with important refinements. Antonio Damasio's somatic marker hypothesis, developed in the 1990s, proposes that emotional experience is fundamentally constituted by the monitoring of bodily states, that the brain generates feelings by integrating signals from the body and mapping them against past experience. Patients with damage to the regions that integrate bodily signals lose not just their ability to feel emotions, but their ability to make decisions, because, as Damasio showed, practical reasoning depends on emotional guidance more than we had imagined. The two-way communication between brain and body that James intuited is now well established. The body does not simply execute commands from the brain. It sends a constant stream of signals upward that profoundly shape cognitive and emotional processing. Breathing rate, heart rate, muscle tension, posture, all of these influence how we feel and think, not just the reverse. This is what neuroscientists call interoception, the brain's perception of the body's internal state. And disruptions in interoception are increasingly implicated in anxiety, depression, trauma, and chronic pain. For therapy, James's theory has generated an entire tradition: somatic and body-centered approaches to psychological treatment. EMDR uses rhythmic bilateral stimulation of the body to process traumatic memories. Somatic experiencing works with the physiological residues of trauma stored in the body. Polyvagal theory, developed by Stephen Porges, maps how the autonomic nervous system shapes emotional and social experience. All of these approaches share the Jamesian insight. You cannot fully reach the emotional system through cognitive intervention alone. The body must be included. For everyday life, James's theory offers immediately practical implications. If your emotional state is constituted by your bodily state, then changing your body is a direct path to changing your emotional experience. This is not a metaphor. Research by Amy Cuddy and others has shown that adopting expansive, open postures increases self-reported confidence and affects hormonal profiles. Research on facial feedback shows that even the mechanical act of smiling activates emotional circuits associated with positive effect. Research on breathing shows that slow, diaphragmatic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system and reduces anxiety, not because the mind decides to be calmer, but because the body's signal to the brain changes. James would recognize all of this immediately. He would say, if you want to feel differently, move differently. If you want to feel courageous, adopt the physical bearing of courage before you feel it. If you want to feel calm, breathe as calm people breathe before the calmness arrives. Act the part with the body, and the feeling will follow, not as pretense, but as genuine emotional transformation, because you have changed the physiological substrate that the emotional feeling is made of. This is not positive thinking. It is body science. James got there first. Subscribe to The Psychology of William James and explore more of his extraordinary prescience about the nature of mind and body.